to Illiterate, a podcast with four friends overthink comic book movies. I'm Jake, and I think the world would benefit from socialized movie theaters in a similar way to how we have libraries. With me are my friends and fellow co-hosts.
I am Jason, and if you ask me, the video of JFK getting assassinated is a little suspicious.
Damn. I didn't know it was that deep. Anyway.
It's not. I said it's a little suspicious.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Matt. And that's it.
Brilliant. I love it. Getting off to a minimalist start. I'm Sean. Do I have a fun fact? I don't, but speaking of libraries, I did recently get a library card to the local library near us, and they have so many movies there. Jesus.
You know what? Let's give Sean a
What
round
library
of
is that, Sean? Tell me where you live.
Tell me where you live. Tell me exactly where you live. It's a free public library in a city. You're welcome.
And your social security number is
6969.
Oh, I have a bit of a fun fact, actually.
Oh no.
Yeah, buddy?
This movie stars Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and I couldn't remember why I remembered his face, and I'm like, oh wait, I just watched his face in Watchmen. So even though I'm trying to purge that movie from my memory, I can't escape it. The world doesn't want me to escape it. The world hates me, and I hate it.
Brilliant.
You can always tell really early in these things how much Matt does or does not want to be here on any given night. Because there's times where Matt's enthused, and there's times like tonight.
Where Matt's dying on the inside. Yeah,
Exactly.
I can tell by the little flash we got of his eyeballs.
Matt's a fickle little creature.
He is a fickle little creature. You know, it's fine. It's all right. Well, I'll endeavor to do my best, Matt, to get you to not linger here, as it seems like this is going to be a dreadful one for you. Though I am kind of excited because, like, we texted a little bit. Sean and Jason were texting in that group chat earlier. Seems like it may be a little spicy one, a little disagreement.
I'll appreciate that, honestly, after going through these. Oh my god. I'm so sad because I know what movie we have next after this, and I just feel like this is a long string of garbage again, and we're just in the middle of this.
I mean, it is the mid-2000s, Sean. The mid-2000s aren't really known for their quality movies.
This is not the mid-2000s, Matt. This is 2010.
Well, you know what? We're reaching the end of that period.
So we've been out of the mid-2000s a little bit. But yeah, I mean, today we're covering The Losers. And I mean, this is probably like the most hardly known movie we're going to cover on this journey of ours. Did any of you guys even know this existed?
No. Which is so bizarre because it has like the craziest cast of a movie I've never heard of.
I had a vague inkling of its existence, but I never cared.
Me and Jason had this discussion where we were surprised that no one knew about this movie because of its cast. Like, people sometimes bring up movie 43, even though it was a god-awful movie, but people remember it for its like humongous list of A-listers. And then this movie's relatively the same. It has a lot of A-list actors, and yet I haven't heard anything of his existence up until like last week, where Jake told us to watch it. Oh my gosh, I don't know.
It came out.
I mean,
it was a huge flop. It came out in April of 2010 on only a $25 million budget, and it made less than $30 million.
I mean, like, it's also one of those things where, like, I was looking at it, and so, like, this movie came out when, like, all of the people in this cast were not considered as, like, big AAA actors as they are now. But on top of that, this came out a month before the A-Team, which I would say is the more recognizable of the two, when they're almost like, really close in, like, tone and being the exact same thing. So, like, if you've got a choice between something I don't really know the name of called The Losers versus the A-Team, where like even if you don't know what the A-Team is, you kind of do, I guess, if you have any inkling of like what the A-Team is, I suppose. But like the A-Team's pretty culturally, I should say, well known, I guess, in terms of popular zeitgeist.
More so than The Losers, at least.
The person who probably had the biggest name is like, well, Chris Evans, obviously this is post Fantastic Four, but those movies weren't huge successes, and it's pre Captain America. But in terms of like blockbusters, Zoe Saldana was coming off of both Avatar and Star Trek, so she was probably the biggest pull. Anyway, I mean, the other people involved in the movie. It's written by Peter Berg and James Vanderbilt, directed by Sylvain White, fake name, and shot by Scott Kevin, also fake name, Kevin with an A. That's dumb. The cast is Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Clay, Zoe Saldana as Aisha, Chris Evans as Jensen, Idris Elba as Roke, Columbus Short as Pooch, Oscar Haneda as Cougar, Jason Patrick as Max, and Holt McElhaney as Wade. Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, like before we even talk about the movie at all, like I just kind of want to keep talking about that cast because everyone in it is pretty good. For me, oh, sorry, Sean, go.
I was gonna say, like, I agree. That's the one thing that makes me like so shocked about this, even not considering that like back in the day that these people weren't like AAA actors. It's still like it's such a cool cast because they're like so many people that I'm just like, wow, I've seen you post this movie coming out, and like some of you have acted together next to each other, so it's just interesting to see like this back then, but then to also think about like this was something I didn't know I wanted before I wanted it, I guess. So it just feels really I'm gonna get this out of the way that I didn't like the movie that much because like it just seems like there's the makings for everything in here that like you mixed all these great things together that I'm like, wow, I love that, and then I got my outcome, I guess. But like the more I look at the cast, I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. Like there's just so many good actors in this that I'm like, I'm shocked.
Yeah, there are, and it's really funny that like, because I kept every time that Chris Evans' character was like such a douchebag in this movie, and I'm most familiar with him through Captain America because that's his like probably most well-known role. So like every time he was doing some like douchey shit, I just kept thinking like that's Captain America.
He was a highlight for me. Chris Evans in this was a highlight.
So funny.
He made it so fun.
I loved Chris Evans back in his fuckboy days. Like he would just play douchebags in every single movie he'd be in.
He was like a similar character to his take on the Human Torch. It was just kind of like turned up 5 notches.
Exactly. There's this movie, The Fantastic Four, and there's one more. There's one more movie where he played like a douchebag.
Fantastic Four 2.
Knives Out.
No. That's like after. That was like a return to form for him.
Oh, you mean before he was Cap?
Before that.
Okay, my bad.
Before he was
because he is fantastic in Knives Out.
And he is a fantastic
like
douchebag.
boyfriend in
Scott Pilgrim, Scott Pilgrim, which also came out in 2010.
Right. Oh, he had a busy
and
year.
He does return to that Scott Pilgrim role in the animated show on Netflix, which he's also a good douchebag in.
Return to form.
Because listen, you can take you can take the bag out of the bag, douche, but you can't take the douche out of the bag.
I don't know. But the movie is like about so the movie kind of like I feel like right off the bat is this movie is very about as dad core as you can get for a movie. And I don't think that's personally like an insult. I feel a lot of people like they hear the term dad movies or dad rock and think it means it's a bad thing. But like Predator and Aliens and Terminator and Rocky are all dad core movies and they all are great. And there's good dad rock. But like, you know, it's just like a genre. Like it can be good or bad. But this is one of those. Sean mentioned before, it's like very similar to the A-Team. It's also very similar to things like I would say like Fast and Furious and Suicide Squad, where you have these like group of archetypal misfits and in this case, they're a Black Ops team that they're on a mission to take out a drug lord's compound, but spot that there's like a bunch of children being trafficked there, and the person, their commander Max, who they don't really know, is ignoring their call to like, hey, hold off on the strike. We got to get these kids out. So they go in anyway, get the kids out. The copter for evacuation can't fit everyone, so they stay behind and load all the kids up. And then Max, thinking they know too much, blows up the helicopter with the kids inside. But like, kind of as soon as you start off with, ooh, here's 5 guys and they're all cool military dudes and witty, that's a dad movie.
That is correct. And I'm glad you mentioned Fast and Furious, because while I was watching this with Matt, I did at multiple times point out the parallels that I felt. Like, especially there's a part where the helicopter drives a massive van through the air, flies, I should say. And I was like, that is so Fast and Furious coded in every way.
Yeah, this conversation just enforces why we're old friends, because when I was talking to Jason about this movie, I also brought up the Expendables and how similar vibes this movie gave compared to the Expendables. The dumb fun.
I still, the way that this movie starts, I found hilarious, where they build the stakes by killing 25 innocent children.
That's how I knew I was in.
That's how
I knew I was in. They did it so fast,
I was laughing so hard.
It did it so fast that it was like...
Matt and I were cracking up.
It went straight from shocking to me to just hilarious, because it was oh my god,
it was so good.
I had to tell.
If a movie was made to open with something that's gonna hook me in, that was it.
The death of 25 innocent children.
It was just like, okay, now I know what time it is.
But it's funny because they don't linger on, like, it's mostly used as like, wow, how tragic, because then they get framed for the death of the 25 children and have to like go into hiding. But the movie like doesn't really linger on like the just sheer, and I'm glad it doesn't, to be clear, because I don't think it's a really breakneck fast movie for the best, in my opinion, and it would have been really weird if it took the time to. But when you think about it, it's like 25, like, and these aren't even like 16-year-olds, which like obviously that would still be tragic. 25 people at any age is dying, but we're talking like 6 to 8-year-olds probably just get blown the fuck up. And like, what is a PG-13 movie? Really dark, and then it's just kind of like, then it
so
cuts
callous.
to them at a
That's
cockfight.
About it. It's so callous, and I said that because it was like they're all like watching the helicopter go up, and then it just blows the fuck up, and they're all just like, damn. And then it's like, like you said, it goes to the cockfight, and I literally looked at Matt and said, "Oh, we in a cockfight now?" And they just moved the fuck on for so many.
When you think about it, like, there's no reason it couldn't have just been like a botched mission, and they could have blown up the helicopter without them in it, and then framed that as them. Like, you didn't need to kill over 24 children, but the movie wanted to.
They needed to let you know what they were on.
I haven't read the comic, the run that this is based on, so like maybe I'm assuming maybe that's the setup there, but then maybe it may be the same question where it's like, did you have to? But in a way that I can't fully explain, because it should be kind of off-putting that they killed 25 young children and then move on and make the tragedy the fact that they were framed and not, the murders, but it isn't.
No, because it's I feel like, well, listen, at the end of the day, the movie's not about the fucking kids. Like, let's be real here.
I do like that the one thing it does set up for me that I genuinely do like about this movie, and I think they should have gone harder on this, is how much of a dick Max is, and how he's a good. In my opinion, he edges on being a good villain. He doesn't get there.
Edging. Max is edging.
He's like almost there, and they made him like he's just straight up evil, and I love it. Just because like I want more of that. I want more straight up just dicks in my face when I'm watching.
I'm clipping that, dude. That's a clip.
So all right, so right now in one stream of thought, Sean brought up edging and wanting more dicks.
Straight up dicks, baby. Unadulterated.
Raw dogging it.
Oh my god.
But
Jesus.
listen, I love
Yeah.
Max. I think Max is such a good villain, man. He's so fucking funny.
He's in that category of like super, super unquestionably evil and yet revels in it and has so much fun with it. And because of that, you can't help but get, swept up in the ride. And it's just, oh my god, I love how much of a dick he is. But
There's just something that's so funny to me about someone who's so evil that they're just so casual and cavalier. That, like, you know what I mean? Like, everything
I
he
do know what
does,
you mean.
the way he talks about everything is so, like, he has no care in the world. But then it's like, kill your firing squad.
Yeah,
God.
because his whole plot to me is what sells it. Because like I don't think he's super memorable. He's just kind of solid to me. But like he's like I enjoy. No, listen.
Your mind.
No. I just don't think he's in it enough to be. But I like he's very Bond-esque. I think like he feels like a classic Bond villain in the way he's cartoonishly evil. Like he's always in a white suit with one glove on, and he has a little face scar. And then his buddy Wade, who works for him, it kind of just reminds me of Brock Lesnar.
That's
And
what
like
I was
the
getting
plot,
from him.
yes, and their plot is snooks or sonic nukes, which are like they cause the damage of a nuke without the fallout, so that you could be like a carbon neutral terrorist. Obviously, I'm not saying carbon neutral is not the right term, but like green terrorism, which I just think is hilarious because you're talking about selling these things to. He doesn't even want to sell them to like legitimate governments. He wants to sell them to like anybody, and I can't imagine someone who would want to kill that many people and then cares about fallout. But that just makes it better. But I think like my only thing is you only see the
strange.
you only see a Snook go off once, and it looks fucking awesome, and the name Snook is great. But then I kind of feels like you should have rule of three'd it, where you had like a second test happen, or like a second one go off in a way that actually did some, but not a ton of damage to a populated area, like a light population. And then in the finale, they're trying to stop a third one, and instead it's just kind of. I feel like there's one Snook missing.
I didn't think of that. I didn't think of that, but you're right, and it did look sick.
I do think you answered your question when you said this movie only had a $25 million budget.
It went into the first Snook and none of the others.
It went into the first Snook and the cast.
On the Snook.
Yeah, on the Snook and the cast, and that's it.
The entire budget should go to whoever came up with the word Snook.
You got a point there. But listen, I'm telling you, this movie had one of the funniest scripts I've ever seen.
Really? That was more. I kind of disagree. Okay, I'll tell you.
I thought this movie was hysterically stupid, and I loved every second of it.
I mean, it is pretty stupid. The one line that really got me is "That's right, bitches, I have a crossbow." When Chris Evans' character Jensen comes down and he has like and it was like kind of like colorful. It was.
I found that
other than that, I felt like they were trying to give everybody zingers, and it got a little annoying for me.
That part was only funny because everybody before him had like a regular gun that was like something that could actually do something.
Well, yeah, that's
and then
what
he shows
funny
up with
about
a crossbow. It's like
the line isn't even funny. It's just the fact that he's like, "All right, yeah, I got."
It's just the way he delivers it.
Yeah, it's the delivery and the context that makes it funny, but. Yeah, I love the part when fucking what's his name, the guy that reminded me of Sandman from Spider-Man 3 throws that guy off the building.
Oh, Wade, when he dropped. Oh, that was funny when
that was fucking hilarious.
He's like, "You gave me the nod." He's like, "Yeah, I gave you the rough him up nod, not to drop him off a fucking building nod."
He goes, "At most, break his fingers. At most."
Yeah, that was good. Wade and Max are again. I don't think I wish we had a little 5 minutes more of the two of them together because they played off each other so well. And you know what was funny? When the gust of wind blows the woman whose only job it is just to hold a parasol over Max, and then he just kills her because he has Wade. Hey, he goes, "Hey, give me your what? Give me your give me your piece." He doesn't say gun. whatever, and then he shoots her in the head, and it's just because the wind came. That you're right, okay, and that is, and again, that's so Bond villainy to me that he has a woman just there just to carry his parasol,
It's
and when
so
the wind
fucking
comes
funny.
and she's hovering over top of him for half a second, she gets shot, but not even with his own gun.
It's so
That's
the funniest. I think genuinely if you're going for a funny villain, you just have to go over the top evil. It's so
I
funny
know.
because they
It's
just
so
don't give
good.
a fuck, and they're just like, and then but then they deal with their problems like they're real world problems, and it's so funny because he's talking about murdering people.
That's I think the only reason that I don't give him like he doesn't reach that like great status for me is because one, I want more time with him and Wade, and just to see it just reminds me of like an Yzma and Kronk situation where like you've got the big strong burly guy and Max. But like the two things that I didn't like about Max is, like I said, not having enough time with them. But then on top of that, the comedic timing for me was either questionable at certain times or like it just didn't work. Like the one where he's going over, get me a squad of 18
Oh yeah,
men but in
give
12
me
hours.
an
That was
18-man
what I
firing squad.
fucking felt like they
Yeah.
just discovered comedy.
And it was
Yeah,
like
you guys, you're talking me into liking Max more and more.
That's
and like
I forgot about that.
I didn't like that part only because like he
What?
repeats. I didn't like that part specifically only because like the third time that Max says it was like, I wish this scene was snappier, because if it were snappier the timing would have been perfect. But because it's not, and he waits like 10 to 20 seconds to say it the third time, I was like, okay. But afterwards, when he's like, kill the 18 men firing squad, and he's like, my brother-in-law was in that group.
He goes, or fire
It's easier
them.
to fire him, or
He said fire them or kill them, whichever's easier. He goes, kill them.
And then he
Well,
says,
yeah,
well, did you give
somebody
them
to
knows-
fire them.
Did you give
Somebody
them
knew something.
Yeah, so he said, did
Yeah.
you tell them about the plan? And he's like, yes.
And
And he's
we're
like,
back
okay,
to
kill
killing.
them.
Yeah, and then Wade has a pause, and that's where the brother-in-law. Yeah, I mean, and also like this conversation is happening over the phone while Max is at like what looks to be some like South Asian brothel. Who also, like, speaking of that though, did you guys get the vibe that like Max fucks Wade? Because I feel like Wade is definitely in love with Max. And Max is just, well, yeah, for Max it's a power thing. It's like an ancient Rome, assert your dominance,
like
and like,
Mr.
what's the
Burns
thing where
and
you live for
Smithers.
pleasure?
I was about to say a Mr. Burns, Mr.
Like,
Yes!
where like
Yes!
Smithers is like totally obsessed with him, and Mr. Burns is like, you're just my fuck toy. You know what I mean? Like, that's the vibe I get.
They have
100%.
that kind of chemistry.
And they do have chemistry. A lot of people in this movie have chemistry, I think.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Though
the
I
reason
don't really get it from
because-
Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Zoe Saldana.
I know. That's the thing though about this movie, is that this is an objectively bad movie, and I'm not gonna convince you otherwise. And yet I had such a good time because it seemed like all of the actors had a good time. They had good chemistry, and even though the dialogue was bad, through their performance they made it fucking incredible. Like, for example, Sean didn't like the 18-man firing squad joke. I did, because the way Max said it was so fucking snobby that I just fell in love with him. Like, I would get him an 18-man firing squad if he asked. Like, that's just how charismatic he acts it.
And that's the thing, which makes him an even better villain, because it shows how manipulative he is.
Exactly. Then I just love the joke afterward where he just says, remember that 18-man firing squad I told you to get? Kill them.
Did you give them intel? Yeah. And we're back to killing them.
Yeah, that's God. See, what I'm starting to think is you and Matt seem much more like, I don't necessarily agree with Matt saying that this is an objectively bad movie, because like beyond, like, I'm not gonna take objective to literally. I get your point, but I don't know. There's too much of what I understand to be appealing in this, and I think what it may almost come down to is like you and Matt seem much more positive than me and Sean. Me and Sean watched this on our own, and you and Matt watched it together. I think this is just like a movie to watch with the boys. Like, I don't think. I feel like it's probably just a lot better if you're watching with a friend, and then you can laugh at that silly shit more. Versus if you're kind of just on your own, you're going to be more focused on like how undefined some of the losers are, or the editing, or something something like less fun.
I agree. Bouncing jokes off of each other during this movie would be fucking hilarious, and it would also help close up those times where I'm watching Jeffrey Dean Morgan in this movie, because he was one of the most. Anytime him or Idris Elba came on, I was like, I'm bored.
Oh, I liked Idris Elba as Roke. I actually thought they should have switched roles, though. I think Elba's better when he's like kind of a dick, but with a heart of gold, than when he's a heel.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I felt
better
too.
as a heel.
They're both good at playing villains, though. They're both good at playing very snobby villains. Well, not snobby villains, just evil people.
Yeah, like, I was gonna say, I just know, like, comparatively, like, anytime Max is on screen, anytime you have Chris Evans on screen, anytime you have Pooch, I liked Pooch. Anytime you have fucking Wade, is his name Wade? It's Wade, right?
Yeah.
Wade, the Brock Lesnar.
Every time you have
Sandman
Wade on
guy.
stream,
He reminded me so much of Sam.
Like any of those like 4 people or 5 people or however many I just counted, anytime you have them on screen, the movie's a blast, and I love every dumb second of it. But like anytime it's like Zoe Saldana, anytime you have Jeffrey Dean Morgan, anytime you have Idris Elba, when it's Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Idris Elba, I get the chemistry, but they're just both in such boring scenes because they're dealing with, like, Idris Elba's whole thing is like there's a lot of melodrama behind the character and a lot of I just want to get back home, and like, yes, but also you've all been framed, so you can't really go back home, and also you don't have the money and shit, which they address in the movie, but like, you've all been framed. If you go back, you're going to jail.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like the characters' motivations are very shallow and then sometimes very poorly explained, and the plot is extremely predictable, and it's just not that well paced.
Well, I just find some of their reasonings for like certain choices to be stupid. Some of them make sense, and those are the people that I like. And those are the people that I like. It's just like by the end of this, I had no idea about like anything really of Jeffrey Dean Morgan's characters except for the fact that he like was the colonel of the group, and that he felt bad that they failed the mission before and still was living back in that kind of scenario until finally, by like midway through, he gives up on that.
That's why I tried to say, like, this is
and he's horny and he likes women.
Movie. Like, this is an objectively bad movie is because there are those questions, and then every single one of your complaints is valid. But for me, it's just, I guess because my view of the movie is skewed a little bit because I watched it with Jason. But the movie was just so much fun for me that I just forgave it for all its missteps. It's kind of like watching a Fast and Furious movie. It's not going to make sense. It's not really going to blow you away, but it just has fun, and because of that, you are taking on the ride as well. And I just forgave it. Like, I can't invalidate anything you just said, Sean, because they're true. But I was having a great time. I was having such a good time.
It's credit to it does also, like Fast and Furious. I think it is aware of all this. Like, it's not trying to be.
Oh, yeah, it has fun.
Like, the fact that it moves on so quickly from the 25 kids being murdered is the perfect example of how irreverent this movie is about itself.
Right. I think also, they were like
cliche.
snorting coke and trying to make like one up each other with one-liners while writing this movie.
Exactly. Like, the reason why I love this movie is because it is so cliche that it borderlines on parody. Like the 25 dead children
That's
scene.
True.
Yeah, the 25 dead children scene. The way that it was going along, I looked at Jason, I'm just thinking to myself, there's no way they're going to kill these kids, right? Like, that's like the most cliche thing they could possibly do is kill these kids right now. And then just a few minutes later, I see a rocket shoot heading straight toward the helicopter with 25 kids. Oh,
I mean, it's a pretty wild movie at points, like from the child deaths to the snooks, and it's largely simple. Like, you kind of, I want to talk about Aisha a little bit, because I think we're like talking about why some characters work and some don't, and we have some differences of opinion on that for sure. Because like, I personally enjoyed Idris Elba's Roke. In particular, there's a scene where him and Jensen are ambushing a helicopter basically, and they're kind of bickering on the ground, pretending to be hurt and dead beforehand. And I thought that was like a fun scene. I just think the issue is a lot of these characters are kind of like an accepted part of like this kind of genre of like group of misfits in an action movie is you're gonna have very archetypal characters, and that's fine. But I think they kind of hit too similar ones. Cougar, who's probably the least defined character. There's like one line about he really likes his hat, I guess, but he's like the silent sniper guy. But they're all witty banter, and it kind of gets a little redundant. And that's why I think there's certain characters like Jeffrey Dean Morgan and what's his name, Clay and Roke are very similar, which I guess is to make them on opposite ends at the end when Roke ends up betraying the group out of frustration with Clay's leadership. But as a whole, it just felt like they kind of could have been rolled together. Or Roke and Jensen, like, you probably could have taken one of the losers out and it would have been a little bit of a better movie. And some of that goes into, and then maybe use some of that space to flesh out Aisha, who joins the group because she also wants revenge on Max, but then you come to find out that she is actually the daughter of the drug lord that Clay had killed in Bolivia
to save the 25 dead children.
To save the children, though, you actually come to find out that drug lord, Aisha's dad, had known about Max's plan and was going to expose it, and that's why that raid had been ordered on his compound. And Aisha then has to like move past that and kind of accept that while her father was doing a good thing there, he's not innocent. And like, that's all well and good, but for the most part, Aisha's just kind of like generic femme fatale, which is at least a bit of a standout archetype to the other losers. But again, I think if you rolled one or two characters together here, it would be beneficial for the whole.
I can see that. I can agree to
that. I get what you're saying, because it's kind of like almost like, I don't know, like Pooch and Jensen are both like the goofier guys. One's just more of a douche and one's more likable. And then what's it called? Clay and Roke are both kind of like somewhat brooding yet also witty frontmen. It's kind of like Pears and then also Cougar.
And then also Cougar.
The other thing
He's
about
the
Pooch
odd man
and Jensen
out almost.
They're the two that have like a family based they're the only two that I think have like that defined of a reason to want to go home, other than the general, wanting to go home and not live in hiding in Bolivia.
Yeah.
And that's Jensen is like really invested in his 8-year-old niece's like 8 and under soccer team, and that's one of my favorite bits, because he has this little like youth soccer shirt that he wears, and he like uses a VPN to check up on how they're doing, and which is very sweet. And it also leads to the Petunia. There's a post credit scene, or I don't even know if I'd call it that, because it's like just after the title card. It's not even really a mid one, but where he's like freaking out. They get home at the end, and he's freaking out on a ref at his niece's 8 and under soccer match. And then Pooch has a pregnant wife, but I don't know. Sorry to shit on your guy, Sean, but for me, the only thing I felt like I knew about Pooch was he had a pregnant wife.
I just found it's not that he had much character to him, just more that like everything bad happened to him. He got shot in the leg, like he got shot somewhere once, and then he got shot in both knees.
Both his legs, and then they asked him if he could walk. That shit made me laugh so hard.
That was funny.
Then the second time they ask him, he goes, "Oh, it's ask dumb question day."
Which I just
so funny.
Oh my god, the way he was shooting people as he was falling down, and every single one was a headshot. It was so,
Absurd. It's like like you said, it's that perfect edge between cliche and parody. Like everything
It's
is
so-
so over the top and like expected, but also hilarious and funny and stupid still.
The dude was like slow motion falling, like Max Payne style, every single time he shoots somebody. It's so funny.
Dude, I want to watch this movie again.
You know what would have made me like Pooch more though? Is
What?
Columbus Short was far from bad in this, but he should have been played by Tyrese Gibson because Pooch is just Roman Pierce.
Oh yeah, he's
Oh,
100%
that's-
oh, yeah,
Roman.
Think about him getting shot in the legs and the ask dumb questions day,
Yeah,
and then
that's
calling him legless
absolutely a
Pooch.
Roman Pierce.
Like everything about that character is Roman Pierce, but like Columbus Short is good as Pooch, but Tyrese Gibson is so like that type of character. If you've seen the Fast movies that Rome is in, is so Tyrese Gibson. I don't think there's a person better on the planet to play that archetype. And
I love Tyrese.
fuck
Shout out
me,
Tyrese
like
Gibson.
I think this again. You could do absolutely nothing to change Pooch, but switch in Tyrese Gibson, and I think I'd like the movie like 10% better.
You can just put him in any movie, and I like the movie a little bit better.
I would say it'd be like 20% better
I
because
think,
he has more of a character.
I think the one thing I do also want to mention is that, like, in my opinion, I'm definitely highlighting more of a lot of the things that I like. But like, if there's two like glaring things that I absolutely did not like about this movie, it's definitely like the writing is ass at times. Like, oh my god, it's terrible at certain times. And like obviously things are pretty basic, which I feel like it's meant to, but like at times that really doesn't help the movie. Like with the characters that we've talked about, not knowing any of their motivations and them just being there to be quippy banner is not really that great. And on top of it, the editing at times is ass. I did like in the beginning when they tried to do like the little shots of like what is supposed to look like a comic book. I wish I had actually read the Losers beforehand, because then I'd have a little bit more to compare off of. I know Jock's art is fantastic in it, but like I like that they tried something in the beginning, I guess. But then the editing goes to shit the rest of the movie.
Oh my god, yeah, the rest. There's a cut after I talked about, like, there's a scene where someone touches his hat, and all of a sudden, apparently that's a whole thing, and he, like, curb stomps this guy. It tells him never to touch his hat, and it's, like, you know, kind of singled out because Cougar doesn't talk all that much. But then right after he does that, it, like, cuts to black and then just picks up the scene. And I know it cut to black because he, like, knocked the guy out, but it was the most jarring. Like, it, like, pauses for a second almost. And I was kind of... that and then the general gist of, like, it kind of wants to cut rapidly between characters so that they all have similar screen time, kind of like the shitty editing at, like, Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, that movie's probably biggest issue. Not getting into representational stuff is the editing, and it was a similar thing where it felt like they needed to have Idris Elba and Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Chris Evans all have equal space time.
They also do the weird thing that I don't like, which is where they have like the Office kind of like shaky cam that's on the side of the wall that's watching everyone and zooms in on people when they're like talking and shit. They do that.
It's so shaky.
They do that in this movie, and it does not work with this. It feels awkward. It makes the movie look cheap and uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, it wants to be. I think it's trying to be
sometimes.
snappy, but it's not.
Yeah.
Again, that the cut after the curb stop for me is the like worst part, because I think it's trying to be so like, we're gonna have a like cool slick cut of him knocking a guy out, and then but then you gotta like, the next scene shouldn't be just them standing there.
Yeah. I think
Cut to Wade.
The main big thing to me that comes out of this movie that I get is like my least favorite thing of going through my whole list of dislikes is like, it's just boring at times. It's mostly boring. I mentioned all these fun and cool like things that were kind of hilarious in this movie because those were the things that were hilarious, but they probably make up about like 10 to 15 minutes of like a 90-minute movie. which, in all fairness, means that like the majority of the movie is boring.
There's a lot of lulls.
Which it just I would definitely rewatch this movie again with friends, because I feel like that would be a different experience entirely. I do genuinely believe that. But watching it alone, there were so many times in between where I'm like, Chris Evans is on the screen, I'm paying attention because this is so, like, everything that kind of comes out of his mouth a little bit is like just funny. It's just funny because, one, Chris Evans' delivery is hilarious, and then like on top of it, him delivering quippy things is like funny most of the time. There isn't really a time where I go like, I don't like Chris Evans. And like, but then like you have, again, like the rest of the movie is like just so boring. Oh my god, like it's one of those things where it's like I just tuned it out. I was watching the movie, and there's like no way I can't like stop disassociating midway through this movie, because I'm like, I would rather be somewhere else at the moment, not paying attention to this, because everything outside of like those moments where you get like that real funny, like the juicy stuff with Max that I genuinely love. For every Max part, there's like 10 to 20 minutes of just ass that I don't care about, that doesn't explain the movie, really feels like it does nothing to move anything along, and just feels like it's there to try and like, it's like they're trying to hit you with either joke after joke after joke to make you go and like until something hits the wall and sticks, or it's like a situation where they're trying to move like maybe the plot along, or like something has to get from point A to point B, and because the story is so shallow, those scenes are less impactful, and I care less for them than I do when I see like something I do care about in this movie, which are the characters and how they behave and how funny they can be at times. But it's only specific characters, so it just, in the end, it leads to me feeling bored most of the time watching the movie, and it just makes me disappointed, because I can really see that there's like promise if they went full in, and like also if a couple other things were figured out, also if they had better writers. Like there's a lot of things that make me go into this movie and go like, there's so much potential here for like just a funny, like just a good fun like Fast and Furious movie, and I'd love to see more of it. Like something that I can just sit down, turn my brain off for a little bit and enjoy, and just have fun with and laugh and just get, I don't have to take anything out of it other than it's fun. But like the oh my god, the movie being boring is what ruins it for me. It's just I can't find it fully fun if only 15 minutes are fun.
And I think one of the problems with that too is like we're talking about like a genre of, okay, we talk about like dadcore movies or the group of misfit action movie type of thing, where there's just better options. Like it's not like this is a miserable experience, but when you're talking about like such a large portion of it is not with the highs of this movie, like when it's being funny, I think is really funny, but there's a lot more consistent enjoyment in things like, if you're gonna sort of enjoy this movie, you're probably going to enjoy most Fast and Furious movies more, and those are just more consistently at their highs. If you're someone who's into that, which again I am, or even like I do the 18 movie that came after this, I don't know what its general rep is, and I haven't watched it in a long time, but I do remember liking it more than I liked this. Or the Suicide Squad from James Gunn that came out the other, a couple years ago. Or if you're just talking, dadcore cinema, the ones I listed earlier from like the 80s, there's just better options. And then, especially in the realm of action, I don't think the action was awful. Me and Sean were talking about like kind of shaky camera work earlier, but that's actually weirdly not super present in the action. It's just present in the dialogue, which is almost more frustrating. But that said, while the action's like not disgusting to look at, it's also like I can't name anything to write home about. And maybe that's because of the low budget, but I've seen low budget movies with better, figure something out, get a better choreographer. I don't know.
Yeah, the movie does look like it was shot by like a fresh graduate from I don't know, like some entertainment college. I don't know what those colleges are called, but it looks amateurish at best. And then when it's bad, it is really, really bad. But just hearing hearing Sean's complaints, they are there, but maybe I think it's also because I came into this movie with such low expectations.
Oh my god, I was
Like,
dreading it.
oh, I was dreading it. Like me and Jason, we were not looking forward to watching this movie. Like we I think before we started this movie, me and Jason looked at each other as like, I'm really glad I'm watching it with you right now because I think this is going to be a horrible time. Like our expectations were rock bottom. And so the fact that like there was something enjoyable from this movie was honestly it's not just like an eye opener, but it was just kind of like it kind of injected life into the night because we actually got to enjoy something from watching this movie rather than being miserable for an hour and a half.
You know what this is really making me think of is, and if you haven't listened to this episode of ours, please go back and listen to it because it's kind of becoming a companion piece to this one. The Return of the Swamp Thing, because that was a movie that was coming off of like a string of really bad movies, and it was a movie that I think all of us would probably have been more negative on if we didn't watch it together. And obviously we already talked about how I think me and Sean would probably be more positive than we are if we had been there with you two. But this is also a movie coming after we went from Punisher Warzone to Watchmen to X-Men Origins Wolverine. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're 0 for 12 combined on ranking those movies. All four of us said do not recommend for all three of those. And in my mind, those are three of the worst movies we've covered so far. And so at the very least, that the fact that this movie has like some funny moments and some enjoyable character beats and like not awful action makes it feel so much better than if this was coming off of when we did like Dark Knight, Iron Man, Incredible Hulk.
I just want to go back to that, man, please.
I don't know,
also
man.
both tight 90s.
I'm gonna watch this movie in like a month by myself and tell you if I still like it.
Oh, here's the thing though. I think once you've seen it with a friend, watching it by yourself still elevates it because you still have those like jokes in your mind and you still have the person you can talk to after this. Like, one of the reasons that the movie is I'm talking a lot more positively about this movie than I thought I was going to talk about it, because in my mind I was like, this is a really forgettable movie. If not, it's not terrible, but it's super forgettable. But I feel like I am feeling more and more positive as we go because of the fact that even though I didn't watch it with y'all, I'm sitting here talking about it. So like, it's probably not going to be as good as your first time watching and when you were next to Matt, but I feel like you're still going to have that there in a month. You know what I mean?
Then I'll give it a year.
No, Jim. I mean, don't give me because okay. I mean, the movie is I mean, in case you're curious, it wraps up pretty simple. Where like Aisha thinks about shooting Clay when she finds out that Clay killed her dad, but ends up helping them in the end. Roke and Wade die, but Max gets away to like kind of set up a sequel that obviously didn't happen because the movie bombed. Which is funny because again, like for all my issues with this movie, this is a movie that I would love to see. It's a small budget movie with a good cast that can stand on its own, but it could also get a sequel, and it's not overly expensive. And in general, this is for that also meets a lot of the criteria for what I want out of comic book movies these days that we aren't getting. But Max gets away, though he's robbed on the bus by two guys, which is kind of funny. Roke and Wade die kind of in a funny manner where Cougar uses a sniper rifle to blow up the motorcycle that Wade's on, which launches him into the turbine, killing him. And then that explosion, and combined with the exploding motorcycle hitting the back of the plane that Roke is in, trying to escape with the money, with like $400 million, blows up the plane and kills Roke. And that is kind of like the one time where this movie didn't need to be R-rated, I don't think, but that was the one time that I was like, I kind of wish we got gore there, because those were pretty satisfying deaths, and I think they would have been more satisfying if we had seen them blow up. And call me, looking for shock value here, but come to think of it, it kind of would have made the movie a little bit better if the helicopter explosion at the beginning with the children had some gore. If you had bookended it with two ridiculous campy explosions, I feel like this would have a big thing at the start and the finish would have really locked this movie into my mind.
To some degree, I think this movie would have done better and would have been made better if it came out after Deadpool, just because of the surge of R-rated comic book movies that decidedly came out after that.
The only negative is it could have fallen into that like Reddit ass Argyle type, like we're trying too hard to be Deadpool. Because this, I agree with you for the most part, but I think it all would have came down to the filmmaker that got attached. Because if it was a filmmaker who learned the right lessons, they could get away with a lot for $25 million because the studio wouldn't be too involved. But yeah, what.
I wouldn't want to go that
are we getting Kingsman Matthew Vaughn or are we getting Argyle Matthew Vaughn?
Oh, was it really that bad?
I haven't watched it. Fine. Are you getting Kingsman the Secret Service Matthew Vaughn, or are you getting Kingsman the Golden Circle Matthew Vaughn? I haven't watched Argyle, but I heard it was awful. I have no interest in it. But my point is that's one filmmaker who, to be clear, has no involvement in The Losers, but is kind of the archetype for like him and David Leitch, like post Deadpool, post Kingsman, kind of became the archetype for that like quote unquote like Reddit movie. I've heard people call it that. I've heard people call it a coworker movie. And sometimes they're really fun, and sometimes they're just make your eyes roll. So I agree with Sean hesitantly, just because I don't trust a lot of the business people involved. It's a really dumb way of saying I agree with Sean. I mean, how do you guys feel about the finale in general? It's kind of cliche. You do the whole Clay has to decide between stopping the villain or stopping the device, catching the villain or stopping the device and all that. But, it's you get cute wrap up with Pooch making the birth of his child and Jensen going to his niece's soccer game.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad by any means.
It's passable. I mean, the final fight scene wasn't bad by any sense of the word. I'm going to let Jason go first because I have my opinion more lies with the final two after credit scenes.
Oh, well, I love the final explosion where he jumps into the plane doesn't jump into the plane when he gets shot into the plane. And
oh yeah, I remember.
That's so hard. We were loving it. I looked at Matt and I was like, it's about to happen, isn't it? And then it happened and I was like, let's go. And then other than that, though, I think that the ending is a pretty nice, simple ending for a simple movie. It's, it kind of ends the way you expect it to,
Mm-hmm. Also, when he made that shot, and then I remember because we saw who was his name again? Wade in the motorcycle charging against the plane. I was like, it's about to turn into a Matrix moment. And I was joking at first, but then I forgot who shot the motorcycle. I think the sniper guy shot the motorcycle, and Wade Matrix jumped the motorcycle into the fucking plane engine. I'm like, oh my god, they pulled the Matrix moment. And the last shot of the plane fucking exploding and then just stopping right in front of Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I forget his character name. I don't care.
Clay.
But it just stops right in front of his feet. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what Wolverine Origins wishes it would be. This is what they want. This is the reaction they wanted when Wolverine was walking away from the helicopter explosion. But little did they know, cool guys actually look at explosions.
Okay, with the Lonely Island reference. You know what I can't believe we haven't talked about? I think for my money, the best scene in the movie is when Jensen infiltrates the office, and you have him changing into being the IT guy in the elevator when the door opens and he's pantsless. From that into him bullshitting his way past the receptionist, and then on his way out getting caught and Don't Stop Believing is playing. No, it's not. It's playing non-diegetically, but it just feels it's not literal. But it just feels like that's exactly what Jensen's humming in his head, and he has this whole I'm a telekinetic. Well, yeah, but you could tell even as he's giving his spiel about how he's telekinetic and can shoot them with his hands, and making that up so that they don't shoot him. The song, you could tell that he is still singing that in his head. You just know, which is also the credit song after the post-credit scene with his niece, which makes it just so much better. But it ends with him
the
him
perfectly cliche song.
Holding three armed men up with finger guns, giving the spiel only for Cougar, who's in a skyscraper across the street, to shoot them, and they all think oh my god, this guy's shooting us with his mind. And it's so fucking funny. That is like hands down the best. Like, look up that scene if you're into action movies, if nothing else, because it's just really funny. It's so good. Chris Evans is the best sometimes, man.
You have to appreciate the angle of the dangle.
Oh yeah, he was in his bag.
I
With
know.
that
And
angle.
then I love how the woman was taking a peek as the elevator doors were closing.
Oh yeah, they weren't mad. They weren't mad,
Who
which makes it
could be?
funnier. Because if they seem upset, then it's just weird. But if they're all okay, then the angle of the dangle was funny. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm so torn on this movie. Everything that is negative that has been said today is true and more. But there's also been a lot of like different scenes that we've been like, oh yeah, remember that? That was a blast.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's just one of the things where it's like, that's why I'm remembering the good things about it, because that's all I want to remember. The rest of this movie commits like the cardinal sin of a movie, and it's just boring. Like, that's why it's so disappointing to me, because like there are glimmers of gold that shine through what is inevitably a piece of shit, but at the very least there are pieces of gold in this shit. So like, it's better than a regular shit.
There's some corn.
There's some corn.
Like, you know how you get, you know how you get corn in your shit? Like, I'm thinking like more expensive. So like like if you had caviar and then you took a shit and there were still whole caviars in it. You know?
That's
the mental image of the film.
That's okay. No, we're all good.
You good?
No,
Go up in
we can
here,
move on
Jason.
from
If you
that
know,
one.
you know. Okay, well, I mean, before we correct me if I'm wrong, but the other thing is like we're sub an hour recording time total. It's going to be even less than that with like cuts taken out. I'm kind of running out of things to say about this movie though, because it is like I kind of wish it was about 5-6 minutes longer, so you could have gotten a couple more like fun scenes in within these characters, because they are often fun. Maybe a little more action, maybe better defined character for Zoe Saldana. But it is, I mean, it's so breezy. Gift and a curse in some ways, but I think overall a good thing. That we're coming up on an hour, and I'm just kind of like, it's simple. I don't know how much else to say. If you're listening to this so far, like the editing's bad, some of the writing is bad, the action's not that memorable, and it can have a lot of lulls, but also it's quite funny at points, and it has a good villain, and Chris Evans is really good at being a prick.
It's just, yeah, I think it's like this is not an egregiously bad movie. Oh, and there's just everything can be taken at like face value that you could say about this movie, and the movie itself isn't that deep. I don't think I could say anything that's really that deep about this movie.
The movie does ask one philosophical question, Sean, that actually, I mean, we'd be remiss if we don't answer this. Would you rather a gun be pointed at your dick or your face?
Face.
Face.
Because I might come if it's at my face.
Matt, you have to answer the question.
I'm ready for that.
I kind of tuned out the question. What was it again?
Oh my god, it's from the movie. That would you rather have a gun pointed at your dick or your face? They put Jensen has a gun pointed at his dick at one point.
Yeah.
And they say like, would you rather have it pointed at your face? And he's like, kinda. Is it weird that yeah? I'm going dick. I'm sorry, guys. I mean, obviously Jake's ace, but also like, I don't know, man. I'd be dead if I get shot in the face. I
know. I can live without dick
surgeries.
Do you think it would hurt to get shot in the dick?
You shoot me in the dick, I still got a tongue, baby.
No, but like, I don't know.
There's like a lot of nerve endings at the end of your dick, so
it might feel good.
No! That means that it can feel so much worse.
I'd like to be clear. If you listen to us on Spotify, please do. We always have a Q&A thing that you can submit an answer for, and we can publish the answers. 100% the question I'm putting up with this episode on Spotify is, would you rather be shot in the dick or the face? Maybe I'll say crotch to be more inclusive for our non-dicked friends, but
the world, metaphorical dick.
It's a question.
So here's a question.
As long as guns and dicks have existed.
Question. The question is, would you rather be shot in the crotch or your privates, Or would you rather be shot in the face?
Those are the same thing. Your face
I
or
know
the
exactly.
crotch.
No,
I'm trying
he
to say,
was
like, two
just
different
he
ways.
was giving multiple
Oh,
phrases.
okay.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
okay. I thought he was saying
two
those are two
different ways.
options.
No, I'm not saying those are
Yeah.
the two options. Saying just so that like everyone knows what it is. So would
Yes,
you rather
exactly.
be shot in the privates / crotch or shot in the face?
I love
Please
how
answer that on
much time
Spotify,
crotch.
answer it in YouTube comments, email us your answer. However you can reach us, let us know, dick or face, bullet to it. Which is better, which is worse.
I
here's
can
the
survive
thing.
a shot to the dick, okay, and then I can
That's
still
it. I'm
enjoy
sorry,
the
but again, tongue's still there. Fingy's still there.
Yeah, but that don't feel good.
You're not gonna do any. You're not getting fucking pussy or bussy or whatever
Yes,
you
I
want
am.
if you're
What is it?
dead.
27
If you're dead, if you were shot in the face and dead, your dick's not worth
I'm
anything
going to
anyway.
heaven getting my however many virgins they get. What is it? 27?
27 Club.
Isn't that a thing?
I don't know.
I don't
I'm not
know.
religious.
Never mind.
How
I'm
should I
looking
know?
it up real
Okay.
quick.
I think we've run the bit that started off good into the ground, to be honest. So the right answer is dick. And a gorilla could definitely beat a bear in a fight. And that's a throwback
off.
if you're an OG listener, that's a throwback.
No.
I'll just
okay.
say what?
It's in Muslim faith that there are beautiful virgins awaiting faithful Muslims in heaven.
And none of
So
us
that's what I
are
meant.
Islamic, so if we're talking out of turn here, sorry.
Well, yeah,
I don't
that
know
was
the
what I was
logistics.
referencing.
Okay,
That's what
good
I was
to know,
thinking
I
of.
guess. Yeah, I mean,
I-
against all odds, I kind of want to recommend the movie. Chris Evans is the best part, and particularly the "Don't Stop Believing" scene. Journey rips. Again, good dad rock. Journey. But what, you like Journey? You like "Don't Stop Believing" at least?
Nah, not really.
Something wrong with you. Okay, well, great scene. In my opinion, good song. But yeah, the editing kind of sucks. Chris Evans is kind of good. And I'm actually like, I can't believe it because I didn't intend to do this at the start, but I'm going to tentatively recommend it. But I'm just going to say, don't watch it on your own. Hit up some friends, say,
It's
hey,
really
man, want to come over
scary.
watch this silly 90-minute movie, have a couple beers. And because I know for a fact our father is listening to this. That goes for you too, Dad. If you're curious, because we're talking about how this seems up your alley. You're a man of simple pleasures, and but just don't watch it on your own. Hit up your boys. You can hit up the four of us. Say you wanna grab some broskies and watch the losers.
Yeah.
But yeah, tentative
Also,
recommend for me against all odds.
Shot in the crotch or in the face?
Oh God.
Well, yes,
that's the thing.
Dad, make sure you answer. I know you're listening. Dick your face.
Jake, we already got the text. You know it.
Oh yeah, the day this episode goes live, I'm gonna have a text. But I'm telling our father he should also submit it publicly.
Yes, he should. But I'm just saying that because I meant to say that too. I was like, I guarantee you, we're getting a text from our father answering that question when this comes out.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's why I'm giving them the shout outs here. I know the boy's gonna answer about that, and I know the boy's gonna have thoughts about. Oh, maybe that sounds like my type of movie.
This is his type of movie, at least in some sense.
Those are my wrap-up thoughts, so y'all can jump in. If
That's
you have
right.
more to say, you don't have to wrap it up. But I'm tapped. I'm out.
We veered off course, so I kind of forgot that we did that. So my bad. I think that the worst part of this movie is that, like Sean mentioned, the lulls at times, and I think that a big reason for that is partially because I think they wanted a big ensemble, not an ensemble cast, but like a group, obviously, but then they didn't really have the screen time to develop all of them fully to where they weren't boring when they were on screen. So it was really like, oh, Jensen's on screen, this is exciting, this is fun. And then it was like, oh, it's fucking Jeffrey Dean Morgan having sex. Cool. So I think that's like the main flaw that makes the movie lacks because of. So then the best part, I think, is Max as a villain. I think he made me laugh so much. The plan was so absurd and ridiculous. The name of the Snooks, all of it was just so ridiculous and absurd in just the right way that it made me so happy.
I'm gonna mirror Jason's opinion. I would also recommend this movie. I'm not gonna say it's like the best thing ever, and it's definitely not gonna be as smooth as a ride as like a as like a Marvel movie, because this movie will have its ups and downs, as you can probably tell from our Sean's reactions and my reaction. But the highs, I think, are definitely worth it. The movie is so absurd, and
Can we
it's
keep
so
that
silly.
cat meowing in the background?
And my cat won't stop meowing. But I'm gonna press on because it's almost over. But I think it's worth it, because from the Chris Evans finger gun scene to the all of Maxwell's scenes to the to the Wade's going into the fucking plane and there's fucking plane explosion and all that absurdity. It's just worth it, I think, and I would recommend this movie.
All right. At the moment, I don't think I can recommend this movie. If I watch it with another person and I like it, like if I get more enjoyment out of it, there's a good chance I'd recommend it. But as it stands, I just can't. The movie, to me, in my worst thing about this movie is that it commits the cardinal sin of being mostly boring, which is sad because this movie does have some decent highlights. But God, is it just such a boring movie to watch outside of those highlights. So like, if anything, I'd say watch a highlight reel of Chris Evans and Max on YouTube or something for this movie, because honestly, I don't think it's worth watching through the whole movie to like see those good moments. But the things that I did love, honestly, were like the character interactions, the chemistry. Those were the things that really meant the most to me, and just seeing those throughout the movie, I think a lot of them were really fucking strong. And on top of that, some of like the casting in this movie is phenomenal. So it's like I really just see that there's potential in this that I see, and I won't deny that, but I just can't recommend it over it being boring.
I mean, potential is more
Fair, I
than
can't even
what I
argue.
expected.
Very true too, Matt. Well, thank you to Illiterate for the artwork, ALOFETT, ALOWREN for his YouTube channel. Great guy. Thank you to Jason, another great guy, for the music.
Yes, the Upsides PA on Instagram, the _Upsides PA on Twitter, and the Upsides on SoundCloud. I'm gonna put things on there soonish. More to come on that.
Please follow Culture Illiterate on Spotify and Apple Pod, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us at illiterate_pod for any of our socials. Or email us cultureilliteratepod@gmail.com. Let us know, dick or face, where would you rather be shot? And next episode, we're going back to the MCU for its first sequel, Iron Man 2.